Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. This is what happens in life and at work, which is part of life. A lot of people think the same way about an issue, but they do not have the courage to raise the issue in meetings or, with other people that could really affect the outcome of a certain issue. Now, sometimes you have a courageous individual or crazy who, even with the risk of being affected, his career being affected, stands up and talks about it, raises the question, and asks questions at least. Hey, how about this situation? I think this is not working properly. Maybe we can tweak it here and there and make it better. Now it depends what kind of persons you have across from you. If they understand that would be beneficial, it's something positive, or at least, okay, maybe it's a problem, let's look into it. Or you have people who think that their ego is hurt because, hey, this is an issue, this is a policy I designed and we implement, and it can't be, something wrong with it, because that means I had something wrong with my, it was flawed from the very beginning. And you're going to have weasels around. They're going to wait for that to point that out and try to get your position. Now, in this case, we have President of France, Emmanuel Macron, who, for his little flaws that he has qualities as well. And he's got at least two qualities that I see in him that other Western leaders lack, and that is intelligence, and then I think diplomacy. He's a balanced guy who sees further than anybody else that I saw in the West, which I would take United States, Great Britain, even Italy, and of course Germany. Spain is not included here because they kind of keep quiet. So here we have these guys out of this big, the engine, the decision makers in the so-called collective West. Macron, I think, is the superstar in his intelligence. And as I said, diplomacy and balanced and longer vision, further vision than these guys who think just the first, or maybe he's more independent than these guys are. So when something like this happens, when someone stands up and say, you know what, I have a question regarding this issue, this policy. What people have to do, if one had the courage to stick his neck out, you need immediately to jump up and support that person, obviously, if you agree with that statement or question. That way there's going to be more than one to cut. There's going to be two. And if there are some others that have half of the balls that they should have, and they stand up, then you're going to have more people. So then maybe the guy who is going to be hurt in his feelings is going to say, well, maybe we can discuss this. But if it's only one, it's easier to dismiss and cut his head off and then go with your policy. Because what matters for that person is ego, not actually the company. So in this case, we have Emmanuel Macron. If you remember, he said that, hey, I spoke with Biden in Washington, D.C., and maybe we should start talking about security guarantees with Russia, or at least think about Russia's concerns, security concerns, something that Russia talked about for years, and it was one of the reasons why we are where we are in Ukraine. And a lot of people are dying. So the question is, how come now they're accepting this situation, or not accepting the situation, are agreeing to look into Russia's concerns, but before February 24th, they were not willing or able to do that. So Macron stuck his head out, and someone jumped to support him. Some countries, the other weasels, which were obviously Ukrainian handlers, and then there were the Baltic states, a total of 3 countries with a total of a population of 5 million people. So I'm saying that so you can understand a little bit who's who, what's what. And obviously Poland with half of its mouth, yeah, I think we should do that. And then I think it was Finland as well, and former something politician, again, we can't do this, we can't do that. So these little guys that were activated or hope to, as I said, those guys who try to take your spot, they call you out and say, hey, no, we should stand the course. So what did this guy say? And this guy is Hungary's prime minister. So Macron says something, and Viktor Orban, the prime minister of Hungary, this guy, Orban, he says, yeah, maybe we should look into certain kind of things regarding Russia. But he's looking into more economic side of the situation because his population, his citizens are hurting. And if they hurt, they will vote you out. So I think that's one of the main reason in a democracy. The problem is Orban did not really prove that he's this kind of weasel, even though his measures and his policies lead to have him re-elected like a fourth time already. So he's doing something that his people agree of. So this article comes from Sputnik. It's from today, the 6th of December 2022. Hungarian Prime Minister calls for review of sanctions against Moscow. But it's not going to be only that. So Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban called on Tuesday for a review of sanctions against Russia, supporting the statement of French President Emmanuel Macron that the conflict in Ukraine affects the European Union and the United States in different ways. I wonder why, because they told you what to do. You it seems like you're not independent, and as you say you are, and you do whatever those guys tell you, and then supposedly they come and help you with extra, how should I put it, premium price liquefied natural gas, and with their inflation whatever act, right, that they implement here in the United States. And the German industry and the French industry wants to move to United States. So they take their industry, they take their producers. What are you going to do? Depend on United States. Why? Because of the cheap gas United States has just as a beginning, and a protectionist policy given by this Inflation Protection Act. That's what it is. So let's see. And I'm quoting, President Emmanuel Macron is right. The cost of the Ukrainian conflict is not the same on both sides of the Atlantic. And it can't be now, to be honest, Orban. If we want the European industry to survive, we must address the European energy crisis swiftly. It's high time to reevaluate sanctions, end quote, Orban tweeted. It's true, but why didn't you stand up in the meeting in the first time? And you were, yes, sir, all of you. You didn't like it, but you accepted it. The European Union placed so many sanctions on Russia. Why? The big boss asked, or not asked, you know how it is asked. On Monday, Macron told the US broadcaster CBS News that there was, and I'm quoting, desynchronization in relations between Europe and Washington due to high energy prices. The French leader recalled that the EU is a buyer of gas and oil while the US is a producer. Thus, as Macron noted, industry and households of the EU and the United States buy energy at different prices. This gap, he said, affects the purchasing power and the competitiveness of European societies. And you did not know this 10 months ago? 15 months ago? 1,000 months ago? Yes, you knew that, but you still did it. Why? Because you thought the thing in Ukraine will end in 2-3 months. Well, it didn't. You didn't know that those guys are for the long haul, and those guys are not the Ukrainians, if you know what I mean, or the Russians. It's a third party somewhere. You figure it out. I think you already know the Zimbabweans, right? Western countries have been seeking ways to limit Russia's income from oil and gas exports since the country launched a military operation in Ukraine on February 24th. In October, the EU introduced the 8th package of sanctions against Moscow, which included a legislative basis for setting a price cap for maritime shipments of Russian oil to third countries. They already did that, right? In addition to the price cap for Russian crude oil. The package provides for the introduction of ceiling for Russian refined products starting from February 5, 2023. Last week, the EU reached an agreement on setting a price cap on Russian oil at $60 per barrel, which went into effect on Monday. The cap will be reviewed every 2 months to remain at 5% below International Energy Agency benchmark. The G7 nations and Australia also agreed the same day to set a $60 price ceiling on oil from Russia. And Russia, in retaliation, said, you know what, I'm not going to sell you shit. So you're going to get oil from, I don't know where, but good luck with that. And United States is a producer, EU is a consumer. So who's winning, who's losing? Will that affect United States? A little bit. Will it affect European Union? A big deal, great deal. And remember, when the European Union places sanctions, all the members have to be in agreement, unanimity, all of them. If one country says, no, I didn't agree with this, like Hungary did with certain things, it's not going to go through. And there are some weasels in the European Union who don't like that, because that means all countries are equal, and they want to go to a democratic way, which is 51% up. Then yeah, we're gonna do that. Why? Because it's easier to convince 51% of the countries through different means, than convince that one that is really not gonna do it. One country has a lot of power, and they don't like that. They want certain countries to have powers, which we know which ones they are. All right, well, shoot yourself in the foot. And Orban supports Macron in the economic sphere, and I'm pretty sure he's going to support Russia in the not military, in the security guarantees for Russia. Orban is considered, a stooge of Putin and all this, but if you just set aside passion, you can see that Orban does things for his country and for his people first, and then for Brussels or international banking system or energy producers or military industrial complex. So he's kind of putting those guys and interests that have an influence on Hungary as well. That's without any doubt. But that's lower on Orban's list. He actually does what he's supposed to, care for his population. And if you tell me about, the security, Russia will come and conquer Hungary, please. I mean, we're past third grade here, okay? I think we all graduated kindergarten. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.